On today's video, I've got some explaining to do. Hello all, and welcome back to Lily Bees. On today's episode, we're getting into round 2, the Elite 8 of our Bourbon Madness tournament. And I wanted to make a note on one thing real quick that I had explained previously, but it's been a while, so I wanted to touch on it again. So what we're getting into now, just the way that the results have shaken out, is that in 3 out of the 4 matchups, we have a bourbon versus a rye. Being someone who prefers rye, there's a good chance that a rye is going to end up winning. I think those chances were a good possibility no matter what the matchups were. But what I wanted to mention is I did create an alternate bracket of these final 8 bottles being matched up with their like style. So having bourbon, bourbon, rye, rye, etc. and close in proof. The problem with that is if I make a change now, everybody's bracket is not going to line up, and so the tournament's over. What I did want to mention instead is that we're going to end up having maybe a final 4 or whatever, a first through 4th place, and I'm hoping that it ends up being we have our best rye, our best budget bottle, our best high dollar bottle, and our best bourbon, something like that. So even if we knock out all of our bourbons before the final 4, our top bourbon that made it will be the best of the tournament, if that makes sense. So anyway, just wanted to address that and clear that up a little bit. So getting into our first matchup of the day, we're at the top left of the bracket, and we have Buffalo Trace versus our Wild Turkey 101 Rye. Let's take a closer look at each of these bottles. Buffalo Trace is labeled as Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. This is a 90 proof, and there's a whole story on there, but I don't think any other specifics. And if I remember right, this is commonly accepted as about a 6-year-old bottle, but correct me on that if you know differently. Looking at our Wild Turkey 101 Rye, oh, and by the way, this is about a $25 bottle, roughly. And this is as well. This 101 Rye is about 25 to 30, if I remember correctly. This is a Kentucky Straight Rye whiskey. This comes from the Wild Turkey Distillery. It's 101 proof. And that's about all we have there as well. So we're starting today with the taped glass. To me, this is a little bit, I would almost say spicy on the nose. There's a touch of alcohol in there. Not a lot of complexity yet. One thing that I find is after you take a sip and then come back and smell it, it will be drastically different. So a lot of these first noses aren't too big of an indicator. Let's take a sip. Okay, definitely spicy. Kind of a light caramel. It's light in general. A little bit proofy, but just light in flavor. Let's try one more sip here. Okay, that's nice. The spice lasts for quite a while. I do like that one. Let's move on to the non-taped glass. This one to me is a much more classic smell. It's got the classic caramel, vanilla, a little bit less of an alcoholic smell than the taped glass. Let's try a taste. I would say very well rounded. There's not a flavor that really jumps out at me. It's just nice and even. A little bit less proofy would be my guess than this one. It doesn't have the spiciness that this did, which I think indicates, hopefully, which is which. A little bit of kind of an orangey, zesty smell there. Yeah, that one's nice. Let's go back to the taped glass one more time. So I'm still getting that buttery, spicy smell. It's a little bit thicker than this one. So I think I have a pretty good guess, but I've definitely been wrong before. One more taste on the non-taped glass. Okay, they are, I don't want to say drastically different, but there are differences where I definitely prefer the taped glass. It tastes to me like a little bit higher proof. It's got a little more complexity of flavor, and the spiciness comes through, which I tend to prefer. So the winner of this matchup is going to be the taped glass. Let's move on to the second matchup of the day. All right, our second matchup of the day on the lower left portion of the bracket will be Willet versus Willet. So this will be interesting. We have our Old Bardstown Estate versus the Willet Family Estate 4-year. So let's take a look at each of these bottles. The Old Bardstown is labeled as Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 101 proof, and is sour mash. And the Family Estate Small Batch Rye is labeled as a straight rye whiskey, 108.8 proof. And it does say that it's 4 years. So, cask strength, 4 years. Okay, so let's take a smell. We're starting with the taped glass. This one has a very deep aroma, complex. I would say that it's pretty strong. Let's get a little taste of that one. Wow. Very nice. It's buttery, kind of oily in a good way. There is a touch of spice there, but overall, really nice. There's like a lasting spice to that one. Let's check out the non-taped glass. This one is a little more mellow in smell. I feel like I'm getting a citrus, kind of an orange smell on that one. Let's try a taste. Again, really nice. It doesn't quite have the spiciness and the lasting, I don't want to say burn, but warmth, we'll say, of the taped glass. Definitely more down there as far as aroma. Nothing jumps out at me with that one. We'll go back to the taped glass one more time. Yeah, that one is spicy. There's almost like a cinnamon spice, I feel like. Very complex, and it lasts, so I do like that one. Let's go back one more time to the non-taped glass. Boy, this one's kind of growing on me a little bit. It is just a little bit more flat. Nothing really lasting on the non-taped glass. For me today, it is close. But for me, the winner is going to be the taped glass. I feel like there's a little bit more to offer with that one. I hope I'm right in that it tastes a little bit higher in proof and a little bit spicier. There's a few more flavors in there. And so again, the winner of our second matchup today will be the taped glass. Let's take a look at the results. Okay, so let's take a look at the results of our first matchup. We had Buffalo Trace versus 101 Rye. What's funny is, to me, I had 3 brackets filled out, and it didn't matter in any of the 3 brackets because my winners were already gone. But who was the winner, taped or non-taped, of the first matchup?
It was the taped glass.
Okay, we had the taped glass. If I remember right, my prediction would be that that winner was the 101 Rye because it was a little bit spicier and just a touch higher in proof. So, who was the winner?
It was Turkey 101.
Okay, excellent. That's kind of what I thought. I'm glad that I was right on that. They were close. I would say that the Buffalo Trace is a solid for the price. I hate to use the word smooth, but well-rounded, classic bourbon. But as you know, I just prefer a little bit higher in proof, and I prefer rye. So the 101 Rye took the first matchup. Second matchup, I believe, so it doesn't matter in my third bracket, but in 2 of the brackets, I had the winner as the Willet 4-year. My guess is that the winner was the Willet 4-year because it was a little bit higher in proof, and it was spicy, yet again, as a rye would be. So, was it taped or non-taped?
It was taped.
The taped glass for the second matchup was...
Willet 4-year.
Yes! So, we're 2 for 2 on the day. However, as I mentioned, the first matchup for me doesn't matter because I was already knocked out in that category. So once again, our winners for the day were both ryes advancing. We had the 101 Wild Turkey 101 Rye, which would bring up our under $30 category. And then in the over $30 category was the Willet 4-year Family Estate. So looking ahead to our next couple of matchups in the next video, we'll have the Jim Beam Repeal batch versus our Cedar Ridge Port Cask Rye. And then in the bottom right of the bracket, we'll have our Blanton's versus the Maker's 46 Cask Strength. So I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Make sure to like and subscribe as always, and I'll see you then.